Well, my areas of research primarily are around access and equity issues. In particular, I have looked at access policies such as affirmative action and college admissions, ADA compliance, and the ways in which ADA and affirmative action aren't necessarily mutually exclusive policies but are complementary in many respects. I've also been spending a lot of time over the years concerned about diverse student populations and the extent to which students access post-secondary, so how they move in, through, and out higher education. Not so much that they enter, but where they enter. And so my area has largely surrounded community colleges in terms of institutional context, and community college students being very diverse. More than 40% of students that are enrolled as undergraduates are at our two-year institutions. And for a long time, two-year institutions have been at the margins of the larger conversation within higher education. And so I think if there were a term, in a word, what is my research about? I think marginalization actually fits that. I'm very concerned about marginalization in terms of marginalized student groups, students of color, first-generation students, veteran students, and so how these students are navigating higher education and the extent to which they are having good opportunities for advancement, for outcomes, and how they navigate more open systems of admissions like community colleges and seek to move beyond that tier of higher ed that they enter. And I became interested in this area of research, primarily community colleges, accidentally. As a graduate student, I was told to take a community college course if I really wanted to understand the landscape of higher ed. And initially, I was one of those folks that perpetuated the stereotype of elitism within institutions of higher ed. I just didn't get it. I got into the class. As I read, I saw reflections of self. I thought, oh my God, first generation, low income, student of color. When I looked at the participation rates by race and ethnicity, by income, I started to see myself. I saw reflections of myself. And I became very concerned about, again, not just that students enter higher ed, but where they enter, the segmentation that occurs, the stratification of opportunity, and also was so engaged and excited to have found community colleges because I thought, my God, this is a sleeper hit. This is the best thing since sliced bread. I had no idea, how they're a game changer. Initially, I thought, because I have this interest in making sure that everybody is in the full fold of participation and that we move those voices that have been on the margins to mattering. Wow, so too are these institutions, that they've been on the margins and not mattering as much within our higher ed discourse. And it's only been recently, in particular with the Obama administration, that community colleges are now the Cinderellas of the ball. And so for all of us that have known for some time that community colleges are a very well-received, well-intentioned, and very impactful tier of higher education, a catalyst for many students who otherwise wouldn't have other opportunities for post-secondary. Everyone else now is catching up, and it's great. Editing this recent text on the Obama administration and educational reform was quite an endeavor. It involved well over 32 authors, and it was 17 chapters across a diverse array of topical areas, pretty much looking at kind of America post-Obama and educational institutions as, kind of a microcosm of our larger society across different areas of social and economic, political, educational life. And one of the things that I think that I pulled away from this text is that there's been quite a lot of accomplishment of this administration, though there have been some missed opportunities. And so the text is a really nice reflection of looking at the politics and the problems, the potential solutions of what the administration has faced in and outside of the educational enterprise. In terms of some of the things that I guess we could say are results and things that we can praise the president on. I mean, the fact that we see an increase in the amount of money for early childhood, that there's been some expanding of funding to address violence against women, the signing of the Lilly Ledbetter Act. The fact that, with his proclamation, I would say one of his major accomplishments is the AGI, so the American Graduation Initiative. And when that was launched in 2009, President Obama, went ahead and declared that he wanted to bolster the college completion of Americans, to pour billions of dollars into making sure that we promote higher education. As a community college researcher, I couldn't be prouder because he launched the AGI from the steps of Macomb Community College in Michigan, and he made community colleges the centerpiece of this administration's completion agenda. And so again, community colleges being that gem that they necessarily had not been recognized as up until this Obama administration. And I think also because, the administration saw the community colleges as a partner in how they might redress and mitigate some of the effects, the disproportionate effects of the Great Recession in terms of economic recovery for the U.S., and as a nod to the realities of our changing demography. We can ill afford to have a throwaway group in this economy. It's a knowledge and global economy, and so we need all hands on deck. And the extent to which we have increasingly diverse student learners matriculating through high school, and we want them to matriculate and complete beyond, then, the AGI is definitely a major accomplishment. The president has addressed student loan debt reform, but let's get real. A major challenge for many families and students is affordability. We can't talk about access and not talk about affordability. Access and affordability go hand in hand. And I think the missed opportunities are that while we are bolstering higher ed, while we understand that we want to pour more money into our community colleges, we also understand that there's a bottleneck in that there's still lots to be done in terms of college readiness, curbing remediation, the cost of attendance. And so we still have areas that are underdeveloped. And so I think some of the missed opportunities with this administration is that while we've had a lot of the rhetoric hasn't matched the reality just yet in terms of how we really get there and producing, equitable outcomes across different student learning groups. And so I think that there's still work to be done there. I've become involved through our Office of Community College Research and Leadership with some projects through the Illinois Community College Board. And two projects in particular are STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, college and career readiness, as well as dual credit programming in community colleges. And both of those programs have a direct impact and bear some influence on policy and practice. Let me talk about STEM CCR, for instance. With STEM CCR, basically we understand that one of the major issues in terms of a hurdle for students within the completion agenda is the fact that students have some ill preparedness academically, particularly within the area of mathematics. STEM CCR is the Illinois Community College's response to trying to figure out a way to curb remediation and to actually stomp it out before students exit high school. So there is a bridge intervention component whereby there are partnerships. We have 7 community colleges within the state right now that are doing this across 24 high schools, where they are partnering to have students go through a bridge intervention program throughout the academic year as well as in the summers to get them college ready. So for those students that are in low to medium need in terms of college readiness for math, if they test within that area, it's a little bit of picking the low-hanging fruit, but it's working. So students are given an opportunity to get remediated in high school and then exit secondary ready for college-level mathematics, which of course can help with time to degree, which can curb the expense of remediation in higher education. And one of the other projects is with the dual credit program. And in particular, we're looking at funding of dual credit. And this project has a lot of implications for policy because we're really taking a look at who's benefiting. What are the costs for dual credit opportunities? Do we see that there's some disproportionate access relative to students of color and low-income students in particular having opportunities to have concurrent enrollment? Because again, if we're talking about accelerating students' pathways and giving them access to post-secondary, dual credit is one of those areas where we can take a look at how to create more access and more equitable outcomes and, help the completion agenda. We know that the research shows that the extent to which you have higher levels of education, that correlates with higher earnings. We know there are spillover effects for the community where there are people that have higher levels of education. The contributions to the gross national product and to the regional economic development. We know all of this. But if we can't find a way to rein back, these escalating costs, there's going to be increasingly less access because of the affordability issue with higher ed.